Good evening, everybody. How are you guys doing? I see we've got a couple of hundred of you already in the chat. Please let me know in the comments where you are tuning in from, where you're joining us from, whether you're watching on replay or you're watching live. And I see we've already got some of you. We've got Price saying hi from South Africa. We've got another one, hi from India, United States of America, and Ireland, Wisconsin, Russia, Sweden, Pakistan, Geneva, Atlanta, England, Sweden, Washington, Trinidad, Sao Paulo, Brazil, India, California, New Orleans, Arizona, Belgium, London, Derry, or Derry. I better watch out. Italy, Sweden, Brazil, California, Bulgaria, Spain, Sydney, Cyprus. I mean, Nevada. The list goes on and on. Bulgaria. Claudia says your basement. Why not? I thought it was the Kremlin basement. Okay, Narnia, Middle Earth. I see. All right, very well, very well. So again, for those of you watching on replay, please let me know. So we've got some interesting topics lined up for today, and I had to go live when I read this thing about the ambassador. I mean, this is like some of the wildest shit that I've ever seen. You know, just incredible. I think we'll begin with that. And thank you very much for the generous donation, Benoit Lapierre. And we actually had another donation from Lover of the Russian, and I can't see the rest of the username, but thank you both for the very generous donations. I appreciate it. So let us begin. I mean, I didn't know actually they're both so spicy, and they're both about Africa, and they're both related to France. So, you know, I guess I better go with Gabon. Okay, let's go with Gabon, and then I'll lay into the French ambassador in Niger afterwards. Okay, because Gabon is more pressing. All right, give me a second here. We've got tons of clips lined up for you. So hold on. Okay. Just a second. Okay, you guys can see that? Splendid. Okay. So a military coup has transpired in Gabon. All right, and this is obviously barely a month after the coup in Niger. Now, Gabon, just like Niger, is a former French colony. You know, these are both countries that use the CFA franc, which is, or a variation of it, which is, you know, basically a colonial currency that France put into place so France can control these countries economically and through their monetary policy. And so just to show you on the map, right, when we're talking about former French colonies revolting against France, which is really what this is, right? It's stunning. And this is just within the span of a month. But if we look at it through, yeah, there you go. So these are all countries that used to be under French rule. Some of them under a protectorate, like Morocco, and you know, these are basically just categorizing the years of independence. But they're all under French control. And so, just in the span of 3 years now, I want you to listen very carefully. In the span of 3 years, this is the 8th coup against a government, right? In a country that was formerly under French control. And obviously, if you understand neocolonialism, then you should understand that they were still under French control. Okay, so this is the 8th coup in an African country that used to be a French colony. So it's also an 8th coup against France, right? That's how you should read this situation and analyze the situation. It's the 8th coup in 3 years against France. That's what it really is. Because these governments are puppets, they're stooges. You know, Bazoum in Niger is a stooge. Bongo, Ali Bongo, who's the president in Gabon, or no longer, I should say, is a stooge, right? These are French and American stooges. So, I mean, eight countries. This is wild. This is wild. I mean, just look at the map, right? We've had So we've had Niger and Gabon in the span of a month. We've had Mali, we've had Chad, we've had Burkina Faso, we've had Guinea. We put together a map on In Context, just to show the African coups in the last couple of years. This is wild, right? This is wild. Now, forget Sudan. Put Sudan, Sudan aside for a second, because Sudan wasn't a French colony. But you can see the majority of these countries, they were under French rule. And now those governments, the stooges that were put in place, are gone. That is what I love about the energy here that is coming from these young, right? These young mid-20s, mid-30s, guys my age, African men in the military who are just turning, everything on its head. And keep in mind, the ones that led the coup in Niger last month and the ones that led the coup in Gabon, they're from the presidential guard. Like, these are the guys who are meant to make sure that there is no coup. Actually, there was an attempted coup in Niger in 2021, and that was actually put down by the same presidential guard that did the coup last month. Okay? And again, I'll get into the French ambassador in Niger in a second, or in a separate segment if you're watching on replay. So, just to show you what's going on. Obviously, the French are not happy. The first thing they did is they put out a statement. Listen.
La France condamne le coup d'État militaire qui est en cours au Gabon. Et la France surveille avec beaucoup d'attention l'évolution de la situation sur place et réaffirme son souhait que le résultat de l'élection, lorsqu'il sera connu, puisse être respecté. Donc, nous surveillons ça avec attention. La France...
He's talking about an election because there was an election, and the moment they announced the result, which was obviously, Bongo, who won it, the military just stepped in and said, no, we are annulling the election results. And I'll play you the video. This was the announcement of the coup by the presidential guard.
Les élections générales du 26 août 2023, ainsi que les résultats tronqués, sont annulés.
So one of you in the comments said France can just save time by copying and pasting their comments about Niger and replacing Niger with the current coup country. Yeah, they absolutely could. You saw I paused it when they were celebrating, right? So these are members of the presidential guard. They're celebrating the coup. Now, obviously, because they're the ones who undertook it, you might think that it's just them. It's not just them. Just like in Niger, what happened the second there was a coup? You had all these people flooding the streets and celebrating. And it's the same in Gabon, right? In Libreville, in the capital. Let me show you a couple of videos. Here's just a few that I picked in the last few minutes.
Tout part de la démocratie.
All right, let me show you some more. Look, they're celebrating with the soldiers. All right, here's some more. All right, that's the same one. That's the same one from earlier, right? It says on the poster, it says Ali pour tous, right? So Ali Bongo, the president, for everyone. It's a campaign poster, and it's kind of ridiculous, right? Because the defining factor about all these presidents, these stooges, as they should be called, is that they're actually for nobody except themselves, right? Like, there has to be, and I say this also about former, so Arab countries that are former French or British colonies. There has to be some accountability, because when you say, like, these countries were colonized against their will and so on, fine. But when you talk about neocolonialism, you have to remember that there's a tiny percentage, even one person, it could be one person, the president, who is collaborating with the former colonial power, right? The stooge. And so that's who is being removed here, right? Again, more videos. You get the idea. You get the idea. Now, why is Gabon important? I mean, you know, with Niger, I mean, it was kind of obvious, like the relationship with France is it's about uranium mostly. Obviously, the size of the country is also a factor, but you know, this francafrique or francafrique is like, it is neocolonialism. It was a masquerade after you know, all these countries post World War II were getting their independence. The French solution to that was kind of, you know, get all these rich businessmen in French businessmen in Africa together and their contacts, and make a network of people, and then put stooges in their place, and then basically you can run Africa while making it look like these countries are independent. Okay, but look at the natural resources in Gabon. Okay, manganese, diamonds, gold, uranium. It's the largest leading producer of metal in Africa, of the metal in Africa, and ranks 6th globally in annual manganese production. Okay, the northeastern region of Gabon, it has huge iron ore deposits. When it comes to oil and gas, it's the 6th largest proven. It has the 6th largest proven deposits of oil on the continent. So obviously, you're gonna have, you know, as time goes on, and they're able to find more of these deposits, it'll fluctuate. But nevertheless, Gabon is top 10 in Africa, right? That doesn't change this fact. So it has an estimated 3.6 billion barrels of oil reserves. Oil is Gabon's largest export, and it's the country's chief foreign exchange earner. Crude oil accounts for about 96% of the country's total exports to the US, okay? Which is enormous. I mean, really, really enormous. And it has large deposits of natural gas, which are estimated to be over 28.3 billion cubic meters. So, you know, they're trying to diversify the economy and so on, but whatever. You know, the point is that Gabon is very, very rich in resources, to the point that its entire economy depends on it at this point, right? Again, just for those of you who are not too, you know, who need to brush up on your African, your African geography, Gabon is down here, okay, and Libreville on the coast right there. So, you know, this is again right in the neighborhood. It's not exactly in the Sahel, obviously not. You know, Sahel is up here. We're talking about Chad, Niger, Mali, basically, you know, in the middle of the Sahara. But and when we saw in these coups in the last couple of years, you know, Niger and then Burkina Faso, and then Mali and Chad, you know, they're all West African countries, but Gabon, nevertheless, is, you know, it's still got that relationship to France. It's in the neighborhood. We're not going to say it's in, you know, exactly. Obviously, it doesn't border Niger, but it's in the same neighborhood, and it doesn't matter. You know, this whole region it was under French control, and now these coups that are happening one after the other in the span of 3 years. How can you not see the truth? Like it's so obvious what's happening. It's so obvious. Like, this is actual decolonization. It's happening now. You know, it's not this like crap that they write in history books. Oh, it started in 1945, and nothing happened in 1945. There's no decolonization. That's rubbish. Complete rubbish. This right now, you are witnessing and seeing decolonization, and I said that the other day with BRICS, right? The formation, the creation of BRICS, the expansion of BRICS, and these coups on the sideline. And so, of course, what happens is that, you know, the African Union and ECOWAS, what they do is they come and condemn these coups, and then they sanction the countries that have experienced or undergone these coups. So now Niger, for example, is under sanctions. And just talking about Gabon, the United Nations, unfortunately, they condemned the coup. I think it's stupid. You shouldn't condemn these coups. These are good coups, right? Because these are the ones that actually have meaning and get rid of France. They get rid of the colonial and neo-colonial tentacle, right? That's coming all the way from Paris into Africa. You should encourage and celebrate them. And I want to mention another thing here. What France were saying, and the African Union and the United Nations, is that you should respect the outcome of the elections, right? These were elections that took place in Gabon, and Ali Bongo won the elections. Okay, let me explain something. Ali Bongo, his father was also the president. Okay, so in total, this family, the same family, have held power in Gabon for 53 years. Okay, so again, if you'd like that in U.S. terms, this same family have been in power in Gabon. During the same period, you've had 9 presidents in the United States. 9 presidents. Okay, so yeah, that's a long time. That's a long time, and it's not democratic at all. Everybody knows that, and that's why people are out on the streets, because they actually support this coup. They know that what they were having, what they had before and what they were being given, is nothing. This rampant corruption, because the French make sure that you have this corruption and support these countries. One of the main policies of francafrique, of French neocolonialism, is that if you put a stooge in power, if we get this guy in power, we'll tell them, okay, you get military assistance and protection, right, from coup d'etats. In exchange, you make sure that French corporations can access your market, meaning we control your resources. Okay, the French corporations are basically the French state. Yes. So and also France will have first refusal of rights when it comes to whatever minerals or oils and gases are discovered in the country. Okay, so France controls the country, period. Now, I want to say something about this dynasty, right? 53 years of the same family. And they say you must respect the election results in Gabon, right? It doesn't matter that Ali Bongo's father was president. He is also the president, and he just won the election. Really? Well, it's funny because they don't speak that way when it comes to Syria, right? You have on the left here Hafez al-Assad, who is the former president of Syria. When he died, you had his son Bashar al-Assad on the right, who took over. And so when it comes to Syria, the argument is that, well, you cannot support Bashar al-Assad, and you must get rid of him and oust him from power because his father was the president. So because Hafez al-Assad was the president, Bashar al-Assad cannot be the president, because this is not democracy, right? This is illegitimate. You cannot just pass on the presidency from one father, from one father to their son. Well, I don't see anyone saying this about Gabon, right? I don't see anyone complaining in the State Department or the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, or where in the African Union or in the United Nations about Ali Bongo being the president in Gabon. As a matter of fact, on the contrary, they want him to be the president. They want him to be the president. They want the same family that has been in power in Gabon for 53 years to remain in power. And yet when it comes to Syria, no, this is unacceptable. I could also mention, of course, in the United States, George Bush senior and junior. But I mean, the problem with that is that you had Bill Clinton in between. So people, for some reason, they don't view that as nepotism or corruption or anything. It doesn't matter. I mean, you still have political dynasties in the United States. Even right now, RFK Jr. is trying to get elected, and he keeps bringing up his JFK's name. He keeps bringing up his uncle's name to sell himself. Now, I'm not going to get into that because, the stronger argument about this is right here with Syria, right? Because they're trying to, they're going for a regime change in Syria based on this argument that the father and the son can't be president. And yet you have father and son being president in the United States. And in the case of Gabon, which just underwent this coup, I mean, it's so obviously corrupt and no one supports it. And yet the African Union and ECOWAS and the United Nations and the State Department and the French Foreign Office, Foreign Ministry will all get together and say, oh, you must respect the outcome of the elections. Yeah, okay, sure thing. Just as a side note about Syria, and speaking of coups, in Syria Syria was also under French control, so it's very relevant, and it was it was a mandate at the time. Again, they use these different words to kind of hide what it is. It's still it's colony. Okay, it was under French rule for many decades, and basically, when it comes to Syria, when the French left and had, and had done screwing with the country and carved it up and everything into 50 pieces, there was a lot of instability in Syria because Syria had been, had become, from one country, they had carved it up into Lebanon and into Israel and Jordan, and just rendered it very weak and unstable and unstable. And so for a long time, you had this instability where you would have one guy who's president for 24 hours because he just did a coup. And then 24 hours later, I literally mean 24 hours, like actually 24 hours. You had someone who was president for 24 hours and then another one as well. That's how many coups you had, like so much instability. If you look at a graph, or rather a timeline of presidencies in Syria, there comes a point, and it's exactly this after World War II, leading up to the 60s, where you cannot even distinguish who was president because it's just a bunch of colors, jumbled together. And so what Assad, his father, did when he came to power, also through a coup, military officer's coup, he brought stability. Whether people like it or don't like it, and you can certainly make criticisms, that's another issue. But I'm talking about stability. He brought that, right? And he brought that after the French had weakened the country. The same thing with Gaddafi. Gaddafi brought stability. Even Saddam Hussein, right? Also, you can make a lot of criticisms, but you cannot justify, Iraq invasion. He brought stability. So, one of the things is that those coups, they got rid of France, they got rid of French influence in the country and brought stability. We'll see what happens in Gabon. We'll see what happens in Niger, but I think that the French, and I know for a fact that the French and the Americans are trying very, very, very hard to, revert and undo the progress that they have made with these coups. Let me ask you a simple question. If the coup in Niger was bad for Niger, right? Why do you think, or rather, let me rephrase this again. If the coup in Niger and the coup in Gabon, right, let's put them together. If they weren't good for Niger, why do you think the Americans and the French would be trying so hard to undo them? Because they reduce French and American influence. This is a fact. And they'll try and sell it to you and say, oh, well, it's about fighting terrorism. That's what we only care about you, right? Like you need to pay for protection, right? They should just put it that way. They'll make it sound like they're doing you a favor, right? We're here to protect you from these terrorists, which, by the way, we created, through our terrorism and foreign policy. You need us. You need us. You need us for foreign aid. Like Emmanuel Macron just the other day, he's saying these coups are bad for Niger because Niger will not receive any more money through international development assistance. What development? It's literally the poorest country on earth. Pick any fucking graph or chart you like, or any index, right? Niger is at the bottom of the Human Development Index, right? At the bottom. It's the last country or the second last country. So what good is all this foreign assistance doing? Nothing. It does no good. It's just an excuse so they can control the country, right? It doesn't even have its own currency. It doesn't even have its own bloody currency. And then the troops, right? We're here to help you. We're here to protect you. Now with Gabon, it's a different issue because Gabon is not in the Sahel, and they don't have this they can't sell this military point as much. But nevertheless, it's a country that is whose resources are controlled by France, controlled by the West. You have one family at the top that has been put there as a stooge to control the country, control the population, and meanwhile receive kickbacks as they do that, right? This is the policy all over Africa and the policy of francafrique. So, I do nothing but applaud these young men, these young soldiers that have done these coups because they are taking back their country and kicking out the Frenchmen and the Americans. Period. Bravo, bravo les gars. Bravo. Bien fait les gars. Let's talk now about the French ambassador in Niger, and thank you for the Thank you, Amin Dania, for the donations. It's African Spring, which mainstream media just don't like because they are Coup is crazy. Yeah, I love that. I love that term. This is the real African Spring. You know, like they tried saying that with Arab Spring, and that was complete bullshit, especially in Syria. But this is the African summer or the African spring. Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Thank God. Thank God. You love to see it. It's beautiful. It's beautiful, right? Seriously, look at all these countries taking back control. This is how it's done. And they're going to do these arguments like, oh, but you need us. Please, you need us. We are here to help you. You know, this is the cries of a dying empire, you know? Now, this is good stuff. Really, really good stuff. Okay, this is what decolonization looks like. Anyway, let me talk about Niger, right? Let's continue into Niger. Because that's some really funny stuff with Niger. Man. So embarrassing. I've never seen anything so embarrassing. My goodness, my God. So the French ambassador in Niger is on the run. He is, I mean that, he is on the run from the police now because he refuses to leave the country. I mean, I've never in my life seen something so embarrassing. You know, I've never seen such low behavior from a diplomat. Maybe the American ambassador in Syria and Lebanon, they also like to behave like this. But seriously, I want to show you what's going on. Today, the government in Niger released this this document. I posted it earlier. Okay, so this document was a letter informing the French that the foreign ministry in Niger, okay, the foreign ministry in Niger has suspended the French ambassador's visa and his diplomatic credentials. Okay, so the French ambassador in Niger right now is no longer a diplomat, and he has no right to be in the country. Even as a regular person, he has no right to be in the country. Now, let me explain why this happened. This happened because last week, here's the other document. Last week, you can see on the 25th of August, they asked the French ambassador to come, to meet them at the foreign ministry. They summoned him for a meeting. Now, if you are the foreign ministry in Niger, you have every right on earth to summon any ambassador in your country. It's your country. They are your guest. Okay? So when the foreign ministry says, you come, I'm summoning you, you run. You fucking run tomorrow morning. You don't even wait for the goddamn, you run there. What does the French ambassador do? Look at this arrogance. He gets this document and he doesn't even come to the meeting. He doesn't respond and he doesn't come to the meeting. He's in Niger. This is not his country. He is in Niamey. It's not his country. And then in Paris, they're backing him up. They're saying, no, we don't recognize the junta, the military junta in Niger, right? They say this is not the real government. We will only talk to Bazoum. And then they say that we support what the ambassador is doing. He is good of him. He is right. He is correct not to speak or engage in any capacity with this foreign ministry because it is illegitimate. Illegitimate, they say. Let me show you the clip. So this is Macron. This is Macron defending his ambassador.
La France.
And we should not espouse the narrative that France is Niger's enemy. The problem is the leaders of this coup d'etat, who is the people behind the coup d'etat, who are abandoning reform, who are abandoning the fight against terrorism, and in fact are abandoning the interest of its civilians. If we don't say that loud and clear, who will? So let's not be overly simplistic. And our policy is simple.
Man, he's really funny. Remember what I told you? Like, they're going to try and sell themselves. And
do not recognize the people behind the coup d'etat. We support the president who has not resigned. We stand firm beside him. And we support the diplomatic action and the possibly military strategy of ECOWAS.
Right, so he's saying we support the invasion and all this stuff, and this is at the conference. This is in Paris. Macron is giving a conference to his ambassadors, right, and defending both Macron and his spokesperson defending the French ambassador in Niger, who by the way looks like this. Not much of a mug, is it? Right, Sylvain Ité, that's his name. This is the French ambassador to Niger, and now this guy is on the run. He is literally on the run because the government in Niger have told the police to arrest him and kick him out of the country. Expulsion. That's the exact word they did. Kick out. He's persona non grata, right? Persona non grata. That means you are not welcome in the country. Even as a tourist. Out. Get out. I mean, look, man. Any person, just a regular person, would be humiliated by this. Really humiliated. Like, you would just leave and get the fuck out the country now, right? This guy is not only a foreigner in Niger, he is the ambassador. That means he represents Emmanuel Macron and the entire French country. He is their representative in Niger. And remember, this is a former colony. So it's not just any country telling you get out and he still refuses. This is France, the country that colonized Niger, that still colonizes Niger, refusing to get out. You know, business as usual. We're not leaving. So he didn't come to the meeting, as I told you. What was the next step? The government in Niger, the coup leaders, they told him you have 48 hours to leave the country. What do you think he did? He ignores it. He completely ignores it. And once again, in Paris, they're buffing him and backing him up and saying, no, he is right not to listen to this junta, and we will not legitimize these coup leaders, blah, 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 blah. And so now, you know, the government in Niger said, look, you ignored our request to meet. You wouldn't even come to a meeting at the foreign ministry. You ignored our directive to leave the country calmly and peacefully within 48 hours. Now we will cancel your visa and we will cancel your diplomatic credentials. You are persona non grata. Get out of the country. So the police have every right to arrest him. Remember, the Vienna Convention only affords diplomatic personnel, ambassadors or otherwise, immunity if they are actually recognized as diplomats in the country. He is no longer a diplomat in this country. Maybe he's a diplomat in France, but not in Niger. His credentials are gone. When you arrive to a new country, to a new posting or a new mission, you go to the foreign ministry and you receive your credentials from the host country. Those credentials have been withdrawn. I mean, you can see it's not just some random paper. This is an official document from the foreign ministry of Niger, and it bears the seal and everything, right? So I know in Paris they don't want to accept that this is the government. It's the government. I'm sorry. You know, I was just talking a few minutes ago how you had coups by military officers in Arab countries, you know, like Hafez al-Assad, who was the father of Bashar al-Assad, or Gaddafi in Libya. Yeah, there were coups. So what? At one point or another, the whole world recognized these guys are the legitimate government. To this day, right? That's it. That's how it is. So, you know, you need to get over it. But they're not over it in Paris. They're not over it. No, by a long shot. So now the French ambassador is literally on the run. You know, I can imagine he's hiding like some weasel in the French embassy, because that's the last place in Niger where he could possibly be and avoid arrest. You know, unless the government in Niger decide to completely cut ties with Paris, which I don't think they will do, but who knows? You know, maybe we're in for an early Christmas. Unless they do that, they cannot go in the embassy. You have to respect the embassy. The embassy, you know, however big it is, the embassy is France in Niger. Just like, you know, the Egyptian embassy is also a part of Egypt in Niger. You're not allowed to go inside. You must protect it. On the contrary, you have to protect it. You know, and yes, the ambassador could seek refuge in the embassy, of course, just like any French person could seek refuge there. But, you know, the thing is that he should have just left. You know, he's not like some, it's not like Julian Assange in the Ecuadorian embassy, you know, who's like some heroic journalist hiding from, you know, the most powerful country on earth, the United States, trying to snatch him away and put him in prison, you know, unjustly and unfairly. This is not the case. This is just some measly, you know, looking weasel, some French ambassador in Niger who refuses to leave the country. I mean, I've never seen such pathetic behavior. Grow up. Another person would have just left the country. No one wants to even arrest you. They don't want anything to do with you. Just leave their country. You know, take a hint and just go. This is incredible. This is really embarrassing behavior. You know, I mean, all the other ambassadors in Niger must be looking at this guy and saying, "What is wrong with you? Just get out." You know, and I want you to think of the meaning of this. You know, the connotation that the French colonized Niger, and as we all know, they are still in Niger. You know, and I mean this in every sense of the word. They control Niger's economy, their currency, their resources, particularly uranium. They have troops in Niger and military bases, and even now in 2023, when you know, the French claim that Niger is independent, you know, thank you so much. Even when they claim that they do not have any colonies in Africa, they still refuse to leave. They refuse to close down the military bases, right? That's what they were told. And even the ambassador refuses to leave. You know, I can understand a military base, even though it's wrong, just strategically for the French in their minds. You can understand in their logic why they would insist on keeping the military base, because a military and 1,500 forces projects power. What does this guy project? He's a weasel. He doesn't project any power. Just leave the country, man. You're a fucking nobody. Oh my god. Oh wow. What a scene. What an unnecessary scene. It's so embarrassing. You know, he's really put the spotlight on this whole thing. So embarrassing. If you needed any proof that France still colonizes Niger, I mean, you didn't need to wait for this coup. You could have just looked at the factors I told you, the economy, the uranium. But this really, I think, underscores it. Like, no one can deny this now. They are being told in the politest terms, please close your bases, take your troops and go home to France. And you, the ambassador, you must also leave because you did not come to our meetings and you refused the first directive where we gave you 48 hours to leave. Come on, man, go home. You know, the Russians and the Americans many times have kicked each other's diplomatic personnel out of the country. Many times. Happens all the time. It will still happen and continue to happen. Just take it like a man and go home. No one makes an issue out of it. You don't, even the Russians and the Americans who are like really at each other's throats, they don't do this stuff. They don't go hide in the embassy and like refuse to leave the country. This is so ridiculous. Oh my God, man. I'm done. I'm really done. So funny. And if you're wondering like why they want him to leave so bad, I'll tell you why. Because he's hostile. Like the government, the junta, as the French want to say, the new government in Niger have viewed his actions as being hostile. And, you know, this is obviously because as ambassador, he's running a spy station, period. Especially for France, definitely for France, he's running a spy station in Niger. But, and so, you know, he will be helping the military bases to coordinate their activities. And you know, he is responsible to a certain degree for France's presence in Niger, without question. Not all of it, but to a very substantial degree. He is at the very least the face of it, yes? And putting this aside, just let's talk about diplomatic protocol. When the host country summons the guest country, right? So when Niger tells Mr. Ambassador of France, come to the foreign ministry, you go. You have to go. You're a guest in the country. You have to go. And any country that would ignore this, you know, would already raise eyebrows. I mean, 2 months ago, when the American ambassador to South Africa, he accused South Africa of harboring, weapons for Russia, and then or helping Russia to transfer weapons into the combat zone through South Africa. Right? He said that a ship docked at Port Elizabeth, and they put arms on it, and he made up some ridiculous lie. The next day, he was at the foreign ministry, at the South African foreign ministry, being, dressed down, a démarche, as they call it, by the South African foreign ministry, who's a lovely, lovely lady, right? The next day. And they even put out a photo, like, where she's looking at him, like, what the fuck did you say? The next day, this is the United States of America. Doesn't matter. The ambassador goes to the foreign ministry. You do what you're told. You're a guest in this country. No, the French ambassador thinks, they're like above everybody, nose up in the air. No, we're not going. We refuse to recognize you because you're not our stooge. What arrogance! What arrogance! And in a so-called former colony, what arrogance! That's disgusting. That's really disgusting. I mean, they're so hell bent on showing how arrogant they are. And I want to show you people protesting outside the military bases every single day. They are outside the military base saying, "You have a few days. You only have a few more days till we start storming the base. Leave our country." Look what it says down there. It says, "Vive le peuple nigérien libre et souverain." So long live the Nigerian people, free and sovereign, and down with France and its and its vassals. Remember, activists, protesters, remember this. Your cooking pot is the most valuable tool in your arsenal, okay?
We'll give them a deadline of 10 days. The day the deadline passes, we'll penetrate their base. It's true that there will be deaths, but the most important thing for us is that they leave. Our country is more important than our lives, so we're ready to sell our lives for that country.
That's what a true patriot looks like. That man. Look at that. Vive la no, he says "Abat la France, vive la Russie." Man, that's funny. Really, that's really funny. It's what I appreciate about what I find really funny and interesting about Niger is that they whipped out the Russia flags, right? And no one can accuse this the coup of having anything to do with Russia. No one, not even the United States, have said this. Like no one, because it's so genuine. It's really genuine. The Russia flags are just kind of an additional screw you. It's like an extra screw you to the West. Like we're sick of your bases and you controlling us. We want to whip out a Russia flag just to make you angry. But in Gabon, I haven't seen a single Russian flag. I've watched my fair share of videos of people protesting and for the last day. I haven't seen any Russia flags, but I could be wrong. We might see some being whipped out soon. But I definitely seen more in Niger. Anyway, it's just a small thing I noticed, but I think this thing with the ambassador is hilarious. It's really hilarious and disgusting at the same time, like how snot-nosed they are. They think they're above everybody. You're not above anyone, man. You're not above anyone, and especially in Niger and countries that France colonized. You should know your place. You should have some respect. Even if this were the ambassador in I don't know, let's say Portugal. Well, they would definitely go in Portugal because they respect them, but they don't respect their former colony. You see that they have no respect as diplomats, and no respect as former colonizers who should be paying reparations. They should be paying reparations. He should be apologizing for not attending that meeting and just go home right now. I mean, this is disgusting behavior. Next time France should send someone with some more tact. Someone who's actually a diplomat, who's diplomatic about things. A true ambassador, and not this scumbag who has no respect for himself, neither for himself nor for his flag, and especially not for Niger. the host country that has hosted him and his family. By the way, they canceled the visas of his family, but this is nothing special because the family's sole reason for being in Niger is to accompany him on his mission. So it's obvious that they would also lose their visas if he did. Really, show some respect. Learn to be diplomat. I don't know how they're schooling these so-called ambassadors, but they need to change it. The problem is that it's not just the ambassador, it's Paris as well. Like Macron, this whole attitude coming from l'Elysée, it's like they just don't give a crap, We want Niger, we will control Niger, and they refuse to let go. I mean, this is really like, really an empire in denial. You can see that in real time. They're losing control of their former colonies, and the fact that it's the same area that's had all these coups, 8 coups now in the last 3 years, right? In former French colony African countries. I mean, sorry, but this speaks for itself. It speaks for itself. You're not wanted. Take a hint. You're not wanted. I'm sure all these countries in Africa and West Africa are more than happy to engage with France on a basis where there's mutual respect. But not like this former, or this rather neo-colonial crap. This is not going to fly. This is not going to fly. Thank you very much for the super chats. We've got one from Dark Side. Their first super chat says, the first thing the new Gabon leadership did was allow for French media to broadcast in the country again. Huge red flag. Well, I don't know about that, but maybe it was because they wanted to make sure they get the message. I say let's hold on. And hold out some hope for what's happening. At least in Niger, we know where they stand very clearly with France. And the fact that they said no to the base and they're trying to kick out the ambassador. I mean, he asked for it, honestly, but that shows it's really, really genuine. Let's wait and see with Gabon. I don't think anyone can deny though that the fact that the United Nations and African Union and France were saying, oh, it's a bad thing that Bongo is gone. I mean, come on, that shows you he's their stooge, right? 53 years in power, I think, without them saying anything is a red flag in and of itself. But thank you for telling me that about the media. I'll check that out and I'll keep you guys up to date. The Team Orca says the suitcases. I know what you're talking about. There's a video. I couldn't verify it, which is why I didn't show it. But actually, I can still mention it if you want. There's basically a video from Gabon that someone filmed, and it shows a bunch of suitcases, and they're filled with cash. And of course, you can guess the currency. It's the French CFA franc. So they were claiming in the video that this was Bongo's family trying to flee the country. With and not just his family, but other elites in the country trying to flee after the coup with suitcases of cash. The problem is I really have no way of knowing if that's actually something that's a real video. They claim it was his son and the finance minister, I think, but you can't see anything in the video. Let me pull it up again anyway, just so you guys know what I'm talking about. Give me a second. So this is from Gabon, right? I jumped between Gabon and Niger, and now we're back to Gabon. But yeah, here's the suitcase, okay? Or the suitcases, rather. Okay, one sec. So, as I said before, I wasn't able to verify this video, but it's alleged, right, that these are suitcases of cash belonging to Ali Bongo's son, right? So the deposed president of Gabon, and also the finance minister, I believe it was. But again, I'm not sure about this. In any case, these are suitcases of cash, and they were supposedly getting them ready to flee the country, and then they got caught. Here it is. So you've got euros, CFA franc, and some other currencies bundled in there. I mean, it certainly looks unsavory. Yeah, I mean, this is what I was saying before, and it kind of speaks to the point I made earlier. You know, about you have a certain number of people, really, literally a handful of people who are collaborators with the colonial powers, and you see this in African countries, in Arab countries, wherever you had French, you know, and British colonizers, especially because this was you know, recently, it's the present. Even it extends to the present. You have a small group of people who basically screw the whole country over just to enrich themselves. And this is what France engineered in Africa with francafrique. They said, you know, we'll give you military protection, we'll give you weapons, we will save you from any potential coup d'états and anyone who tries to take power from you. And you know, make sure you get kickbacks, you get money from this and enrich yourselves, in exchange for you allowing French companies, and of course these companies are controlled and owned by the French government, to come into your country and extract the resources. And of course France, for any new minerals or oils that are discovered, France will have first refusal rights. And you know, it's basically like selling the entire country and its resources and its wealth to France for suitcases of cash. So this is a sad reality, and what's good about these coups is that you have these young men, you know, like our generation, who are really open, you know, their eyes are wide open about what's going on, and aware of this neo-colonial era, and putting an end to it. And that's why you see so many coups in West Africa and now Gabon. And these are countries that used to be controlled by France. So these young men are getting rid of the old regime, these leaders like Bongo, like Bazoum, who really just work for France. You don't get to control a country in Africa for 53 years without France or Britain or America killing you. You know, that doesn't happen unless you're corrupt. You're serving them in one way or another, and that's why they allow you to remain in power that long. That's the only reason, the only way, right? And you see now what happens in Niger. As soon as they have actual independence, say, oh, we're going to put sanctions on you, we are going to invade you. This is the same playbook you see everywhere else. You know, why do you think Iran and Syria, you know, and Gaddafi, they all these countries that have different political systems, and you know, or Venezuela, what do all these countries have in common? They're independent. You know, they said, screw you to European and Western colonialism. I will have my own foreign policy. You know, we're going to have our own foreign policy. We are not going to allow your corporations to come in and steal all the resources. We're going to do things our way. And then they put sanctions on them, and then they try to attack them and destroy them in various ways. You understand? Raphael says happy for Africa, and Orky says the French are seeing their future, which is not very bright. Yeah. Monique, no, I didn't actually see that. I mean, I saw him. Was it about BRICS or something like that? Thank you for telling me, though. I will definitely go take a look. Yeah, I mean, just again to give you guys some more info. You know, there are 14 African countries who use the CFA franc, and it's funny because to make it sound or look less colonial, I think in 2019, they changed the name of the currency, but only in a few countries, right? So in the West African countries, and they renamed it ECO, right? Which makes you think of ECOWAS. Yeah, not very, not exactly the best connotation, but the whole point was like to hide that it's colonial. And they also put in some other measures, like, you know, up until then, you know, actually what African countries had to do with this currency, by the way, is they had to put 50% of all their money in the Bank of France, right? So in the French treasury. So, you know, and none of these countries actually know how much other countries, you know, in net total, how much of their wealth is in the Bank of France. So, I mean, it's incredible, right? Like the French issue the currency, and then any resources are theirs, And this currency, half of all the wealth has to be put in the Bank of France, which increases their wealth, you know. And now they peg it to the euro instead in West Africa, right, for parity, which is ridiculous because it's still not independent, you know. So they changed this 50% thing that half of it has to be put in the Banque de France, but it's still pegged to the euro, and France still influences it, even if they removed this one French representative on the board. You know, they basically took like fake measures to make it look less colonial, but it is still very much colonial. I'm sorry, it's still controlled by France. So, you know, they can try and fake it all they want, but it's ridiculous. And the other countries, like Gabon did not rename the currency, so it's still called CFA franc. I mean, come on, man. It's you know, it's very clear what's going on. These countries, the first thing they need to do, and they're doing it in Niger, right, is kick out the French army. The American bases they're going to do next, I hope. I don't know. But, you know, kick out the foreign bases and then change the currency. And, of course, you know, the first thing they'll say in the West is, oh, my God, you will crash the economy. What economy? What economy? All the rich resources Niger gets screwed out of so France can take them. And Niger on any index is like listed at the bottom, right? On the Human Development Index. What economy is there to screw? It's already been screwed by France. So, you know, I think people have had enough of hearing this, like, this nannying, you know, crap from Western countries. Like we're here to guide you. We're here to help you with your economic policy. And we're here to, you know, guide your foreign policy and defend you militarily. No one wants this nannying or neo-colonial crap anymore. They're not doing it to help you. They're doing it to screw you. And that's what many African countries are realizing now. You know, a lot of the Arab countries would do well to realize that too. You know, interestingly enough, when you had Arab Spring, you do not have that in the Gulf countries, which are, you know, on very friendly terms with the West. Did you? Right? Did you see an Arab Spring in Saudi Arabia? No, you didn't. Anyway, I think that really pretty much says it all and sums it up. So we'll see what happens next. But, you know, I was really taken aback to see that there was a coup in Gabon. I was like, as well? What? As well? Yeah, Niger last month and now Gabon. Oh, wow. That is such an insult to the French and such a victory for Africa. Man. You have no idea. Like, this is so powerful. It's really powerful. All right, guys, thank you very much for tuning in. And before I tune out, let me just remind you to please support the show if you can. Even liking the video or sharing the video helps. And if not, you can also donate on PayPal, on CashApp, on Venmo, Patreon. As a matter of fact, let me check if we have any new members on Patreon so I can maybe play you a crab dance. Okay, I'm going to check. Give me a second. So... We don't have any new people on Patreon, okay? Again, I'm checking to see if we get any notifications, but we're at 693. Come on. So we only need 7 people to get to our goal of 700, okay? And I believe in you guys. I know we can do this now, so I'm going to stick around until we do it, okay? We just need 7 more people on Patreon, and then we are there, okay? So I'm gonna stick around in the notifications tab and see who joins in. Again, it's basically a monthly donation. It could be $1. It could be 1 CFA franc. I don't think anyone's ever sent me CFA franc. I've received all kinds of currencies, you know, in small donations here and there, but I've never seen CFA franc. Don't send me that crap. You don't support the French colonialism. No, I'm joking. You know, people don't always have a choice. So anyway, I'm happy if you can donate, and I appreciate it very much. So I'll stick around, and as soon as we get some new ones, I'll play you crab dance. Okay, let's do it that way. I think that's the best way. So you have another terrorist attack in Ukraine. This time it's the Kakhovka Dam, and the first thing the media do is blame the Russians. So let's see why the Russians would do it. They control the dam, they control the region, they need the dam to funnel water to Crimea, which is also under Russian control. They literally have zero motive. There is no motive. You know, the Washington Post in December published an article showing how Ukraine targeted this dam using American missiles, using the HIMARS system. They actually fired a missile at this dam. to test if they could flood areas. Sound familiar? This is the same thing that we saw with the Nord Stream pipeline attacks, right? The first thing the press do is let's go and blame Russia. And now, almost a year later, the Washington Post finally admits that Ukraine, not Russia, Ukraine blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. This is something that I, myself, and others have been saying since the very beginning. Anyone with half a brain knew that it was not Russia. Russia would not blow up their own pipeline. But, you know, this was dismissed as a crackpot conspiracy theory that NATO would maybe do this, or Ukraine. No, that's Russian propaganda. And another example, the Nazi patches. This week, the New York Times also finally admit that Ukrainian soldiers en masse are wearing Nazi patches to the point that Western journalists have to ask them to hide the patches before they take photos of them. I mean, this is despicable on another level. And then later they claim that these are authentic photos. This is not journalism. This is curated propaganda. So are the New York Times and Washington Post doing propaganda now, right? They're doing Russian disinformation. These people are not doing journalism, all right? You guys are a year late. Only publishing the truth when nobody cares anymore. That's not journalism, okay? They are the ones doing disinformation. They are the ones doing propaganda. And these acts of state terrorism, blowing up pipelines and dams, European leaders say literally absolutely nothing. And all they do is give more money and more weapons to an army where men are wearing Nazi patches and blowing up our infrastructure. So what's the conclusion? Always ask yourself, who stands to gain? Whether we're talking about the Crimea Bridge, Nord Stream pipelines, or the Kakhovka Dam like today, always ask yourself who stands to benefit, and you'll find the answer, you'll find the truth. So everyone's talking about how Donald Trump has been indicted under the Espionage Act. But what a lot of people don't understand is that the Espionage Act is a law that has always been used in the United States as a political tool to silence opponents. It was crafted in 1917, so during World War I, and one of its most famous victims was Eugene Debs. He was given 10 years in prison and stripped of his citizenship because he gave an anti-war speech. Ellsberg, Manning, Kiriakou, Snowden, they were all charged under the Espionage Act as well, and none afforded a public interest defense. Yet another reason why the Espionage Act is a political tool to silence whistleblowers, quite literally, even in court. Even worse, it's also being used to threaten Julian Assange, a publisher, with almost 200 years in prison. So many people are upset about Trump putting classified documents in the bathroom. I wonder if they care just as much about freedom of speech and press freedoms. Trump definitely put America's national security at risk, not for bringing home documents, but assassinating Soleimani, the equivalent of Iran's defense minister. How come Trump's critics never attack him for actual crimes, like putting illegal sanctions on millions of people or stealing oil from Syria?
We're keeping the oil. We have the oil. The oil is secure. We left troops behind only for the oil.
Okay, I hate to cut myself off, but I've just been told that we have a new member on Patreon. Nicole, thank you very much, Nicole. You've made my night, my day, my evening, and my outro. No, thank you very much for supporting my work. I'm very grateful to you, and thank you for helping us reach the goal on Patreon. So now we're at 694, and we only need 6 more members on Patreon. Obviously, the most important thing, there's a crab dance coming. So thanks very much, Nicole. Everybody, say thank you as well, and let's go.
Clap for that, you stupid bastard.
Corn Pop was a bad dude, and he ran a bunch of bad boys.
Listen, fuckhead, you have fucking crossed the line, claiming I'm the enemy. You got that, you goddamn son of a bitch?
I don't give a fuck what you think, bitch.
Good morning. Sunday morning.
Cut that bitch off.
Thank you for Iron Dome.
Thank you.
والله في كلاب بصراحة يعني ماشي نشتغل عادي.
We lied, we cheated, we stole.
China. 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 China.
And you ain't black.
There's always the macro.
And then there's the micro.
Do not come. Do not come.
I'm gonna come.
You talking to me? Ladies and gentlemen,
I'll have 2 number 9s. A number 9 large.
we got him.
Because I have to do it myself. I know it's not.
I've fallen and I can't get up. Get up. Get up. Disgusting!
She was 12, I was 30, but anyway.
We'll do it live! Fuck it! Do it live! I'll write it and we'll do it live!
Why you text Sanders? Why? You're getting nervous, man. Calm down. It's okay. Okay.
Suck my dick and choke on it! I yield my time! Fuck you!
Wow. I'm speechless. Once again, I will reiterate, you know, I don't exactly, wow. I'm, you know, look, I'm far from a fan of Bill O'Reilly's politics, but that, screw it, we'll do it live is such a mood for me. It's such a mood. In any case, thank you guys so much. Thanks to Nicole and to everybody else who supports the show in whatever manner. And once again, we only need 6 more people to join on Patreon, and then we will reach our goal. Patreon is basically the website where you donate money monthly. That's it. I'm tired. Support my work. I'm tired. Give me money. That was the slogan I come up with. Anyway, thank you guys so much. And maybe I should check if we got anything on PayPal. I forgot to do that. Excuse me. Give me one moment, because some of you also send me questions or comments as notes on PayPal, so I might have missed 1 or 2 of them. Give me a second. All right, hold on. It's rather slow. I see here we've got a donation. This is from Thomas. Says whatever Richard wants. Thank you. Richard is pleased. We have another donation on PayPal from Mick. There's no, I don't see a note, but thank you very much nevertheless. And I see one from Tinja, or maybe Tinya. I'm not sure about the pronunciation, but thank you as well. It says keep up the great work. Thank you. And I think that's about it for now. But in any case, thank you guys very much for tuning in. I appreciate it very much. And thanks for supporting the show, even liking and sharing. And it's very important you do that to spread the word, right? So let's leave it at that. Thank you so much. Take care. Ma salame. Bye-bye.
So you have another terrorist attack in Ukraine. This time it's the Kakhovka Dam. And the first thing the media do is blame the Russians. So let's see why the Russians would do it. They control the dam. They control the region. They need the dam to funnel water to Crimea, which is also under Russian control. They literally have zero motive. There is no motive. You know, the Washington Post in December published an article showing how Ukraine targeted this dam using American missiles, using the HIMARS system. They actually fired a missile at this dam to test if they could flood areas. Sound familiar? This is the same thing that we saw with the Nord Stream pipeline attacks, right? The first thing the press do is let's go and blame Russia. And now, almost a year later, the Washington Post finally admits that Ukraine, not Russia, Ukraine blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. This is something that I, myself, and others have been saying since the very beginning. anyone with half a brain knew that it was not Russia. Russia would not blow up their own pipeline. But, this was dismissed as a crackpot conspiracy theory that NATO would maybe do this or Ukraine. No, that's Russian propaganda. And another example, the Nazi patches. This week, the New York Times also finally admit that Ukrainian soldiers en masse are wearing Nazi patches to the point that Western journalists have to ask them to hide the patches before they take photos of them. I mean, this is despicable on another level. And then later they claim that these are authentic photos. This is not journalism. This is curated propaganda. So are the New York Times and Washington Post doing propaganda now, right? They're doing Russian disinformation. These people are not doing journalism, all right? You guys are a year late. Only publishing the truth when nobody cares anymore, that's not journalism, okay? They are the ones doing disinformation. They are the ones doing propaganda. And these acts of state terrorism, blowing up pipelines and dams, European leaders say literally absolutely nothing. And all they do is give more money and more weapons to an army where men are wearing Nazi patches and blowing up our infrastructure. So what's the conclusion? Always ask yourself, who stands to gain? Whether we're talking about the Crimea Bridge, Nord Stream pipelines, or the Kakhovka Dam like today, always ask yourself who stands to benefit, and you'll find the answer, you'll find the truth. So everyone's talking about how Donald Trump has been indicted under the Espionage Act. But what a lot of people don't understand is that the Espionage Act is a law that has always been used in the United States as a political tool to silence opponents. It was crafted in 1917, so during World War I, and one of its most famous victims was Eugene Debs. He was given 10 years in prison and stripped of his citizenship because he gave an anti-war speech. Ellsberg, Manning, Kiriakos, Snowden, they were all charged under the Espionage Act as well, and none afforded a public interest defense. Yet another reason why the Espionage Act is a political tool to silence whistleblowers, quite literally, even in court. Even worse, it's also being used to threaten Julian Assange, a publisher, with almost 200 years in prison. So many people are upset about Trump putting classified documents in the bathroom. I wonder if they care just as much about freedom of speech and press freedoms. Trump definitely put America's national security at risk, not for bringing home documents, but assassinating Soleimani, the equivalent of Iran's defense minister. How come Trump's critics never attack him for actual crimes, like putting illegal sanctions on millions of people or stealing oil from Syria?
We're keeping the oil. We have the oil. The oil is secure. We left troops behind only for the oil.
If you love Ukraine, if you care about Ukraine, depleted uranium is the last thing in the world that you would tell them to use. If you look at what the United States have done, everywhere they've used depleted uranium, it's like dropping a nuclear bomb, and actually worse in other ways. Just to give you an example, in Fallujah in Iraq, guess what? 10, 20 years later, there are people in Fallujah who are being born with cancer. And it's so bad that you have higher rates of birth defects and congenital heart disease in Fallujah than you do in Nagasaki and Hiroshima. In Nagasaki and Hiroshima, you knew that there was a nuclear explosion and you had to get the hell away from there if you could. The thing is, the people in Iraq didn't know what the Americans had put in the tank shells. They dropped so much white phosphorus, they used so much depleted uranium. The people living there have no clue about this. The war is bad enough without knowing that, if you live there and you stay there, you're going to get cancer and your kids are going to be born with these massive nightmarish birth defects. And now they want to bring this literally cancerous thing, depleted uranium, and use it in Ukraine. If you love Ukraine, if you care about Ukraine, depleted uranium is the last thing in the world that you would tell them to use, because guess who's going to suffer from that? The people in Ukraine, right? Like, if their idea is to liberate Ukraine, right? Okay, let's say that they do. Tomorrow morning, Zelensky's going to emerge victorious over the Donbass and Crimea, and he's going to go have a nice parade, right? Guess what? all the people returning to their homes or all the people living there. You're going to give those people in Ukraine cancer because you use depleted uranium, because this stuff goes in the earth. It seeps into the earth, into the soil, into the water. It's actually worse than a nuke. Truly. Because people don't even know that it's there. They have no clue that they're living next to things that are going to give them cancer and destroy their DNA and give their children massive birth defects. They don't even know that it's there. It's like a silent killer. They don't care about you, man. They don't care about you. This is bad for the environment, obviously. That doesn't even need stating. And it's bad for human beings, and it's bad for wildlife, for everyone. But it's good for what? It's good if you manufacture it. It's very good.
This is explosive. This is mind-blowing. How do we know that it's the Ukrainians who haven't held up their end of the deal, but the Russians have? The deal was that the Russians will pull out of Kiev. At the time, the media that we have here in the West, they were saying, oh, the Russians have failed. Their army sucks. That's actually not at all what happened. The Russians pulled back on purpose and left the capital. They left Kiev because of this peace agreement. Boris Johnson was the prime minister at the time, and he just randomly happens to go and visit Zelensky. And he tells Zelensky, drop out of the peace negotiations, drop out. Zelensky did what Boris Johnson told him to do. Angela Merkel, who is the German chancellor, she says that in the end, the Minsk agreement, it was just a ruse in order to buy time for NATO to arm Ukraine. This means that once again, you cannot take Western leaders and diplomats seriously. The Russians are done talking. This is the conclusion that I draw from this, because they have had it up to here with Ukraine and their backers and guarantors, you know, just playing games with them. So just remember the next time that the media tell you that the Russians walked away from peace talks, that this is a lie. And when they tell you the next time that Russia wanted this war, that this is a lie. Just remember these things.
Some in Iran wanted Iran to go to war with the Taliban. And actually, they were liberals. They were the pro-Western liberals who were saying that we should, you know, go to the defense of the Tajiks, or Persian speakers, the Hazaras, who are predominantly Shia, and the Uzbeks and others. They together are more than 50%. Taliban is basically Pashtun. They are 40%, roughly 40% of the country. It's sort of ironic because the people who are calling for Iran to wage war against the Taliban, they were totally against the Russians in Ukraine. Their logic is not dissimilar to the logic of the Russians. These people were saying we should go to the support of the Persian speakers. Why not the Russians support Russian speakers? But yeah, that hypocrisy is aside. The Iranian government said, look, we have to keep Afghanistan peaceful, and it's had enough war.
South Africa, China, Brazil, all these countries that are BRICS countries. So you know, they are partners with Russia. They're not condoning Russia. They're actually saying, hey, everybody calm down and let's resolve this. And all you see is media attacking them. They attacked South Africa for proposing diplomacy. They attack Lula for trying to sit down Zelensky. Zelensky makes him wait and then doesn't even show up to the meeting. I mean, how insulting in any context, right? Never mind a goddamn president of the largest country in Latin America. So they try to like attack the countries closest to Russia for actually suggesting peace. Maybe South Africa should give some F-16s instead of being a Putin puppet, right? Maybe China should send some F-16s instead of being a Kremlin asset.